Hey, welcome to another episode of the Not Scrum Done podcast. I am your co host, Andriana, professional Scrum trainer, and that is my amazing co host.
Grand Scrum Master Scott.
Today, we're going to be talking about the 7 ways to measure developer success. And in this context, we're referring to developers not as software engineers, but in the Scrum context where it's used to simplify. So it could be a software engineer, it could be researchers, analysts, HR, marketing, scientists, anyone that's required to work on the sprint and create a high quality done increment at the end of the sprint. Diving into the first topic, I kind of hinted at it, but quality. That's probably a really important thing when we're talking about getting to done. Nobody wants a crappy product, no matter what context it is.
Yeah, as you mentioned, this is vitally important, the quality of work. I'm going to speak from a technical environment just for a moment. And I'm thinking about the definition of done. As we look at the definition of done, which means quality and completeness with Scrum, all the developers meeting the definition of done. Now, when I was at Bank of America, one of the things that we did sometimes and not so well other times is mandatory at Bank of America that the developers have to actually do code reviews. And if they don't do code reviews, we can be up for, when it's time for a quarterly audit from the government, the bank can get slapped with a fine. So we put that in our definition of done, whereas it wasn't there before. And as a result of doing that, we was able to increase our quality standards and not miss the code reviews being done and not cost the firm any more money. So that is also another way that you can think about quality of work. Is it costing you any money for you to do or not to do what it is you're trying to build?
Yeah, and I think even in a non context situation, if you're writing, authors have editors, they have plenty of reviews. They don't just write their book and send it out. It's really important in general to be thinking about having high quality product, and quality is the way that we are going to measure the developers. It's really and productivity. So how efficient are the developers able to complete their work? If there are deadlines, I know a lot of times we talk about being able to adapt quickly and change and different things like that, but we are in a world where we have deadlines. And in some instances, you can kind of look at the sprint as one, but I try to tell my teams the most important thing is quality rather than just getting the task done. That takes us to the second point, which is the efficiency and productivity of the developers. Anything else to add to this one, Scott?
Oh, absolutely. One of the ways I look at the team's efficiency and productivity, I do that in Daily Scrum for the first 30 days on a new team. So strategically, when I'm at Daily Scrum facilitating, I'm watching the sprint backlog to see if items are moving in a reasonable amount of time. It may not be every day, but you should see some movement at least every 2 or 3 days. And if I don't see that movement after doing Daily Scrum for 3 days, facilitating it back to back to back, then I'm going to begin to ask specific questions. Hey, this ticket has been stuck here in this same place for a while. What's going on with this ticket? What's going on with this item? So that we can kind of keep things moving towards done. Is there an impediment here? Is there something blocking us from here? What's going on? Just use the daily scrum that when I'm there facilitating in my teaching hat, teaching them to keep it within the 15-minute time box, then I am asking those questions and watching that as a way of thinking about efficiency and productivity.
The additional point that I want to make here is the bottlenecks are the really important aspect. Like how where are their bottlenecks? Are they actually swarming and getting rid of those bottlenecks? This is a great opportunity if you are a scrum master or even a developer listening to maybe add work in progress limits that can really help your team see where you guys are struggling. So this is really important. The flow of work and constantly delivering value is important, and understanding where you're stuck and removing those, which I think brings us to our third point, which is collaboration and communication. If you are collaborating and communicating well, then there are high chances that you do have high quality and that you are efficient and productive in catching those bottlenecks. It's not just necessarily the technical skill, and I say technical not just in terms of software developers, but you're being great at your specific area, but being able to work as a team. When you're on a scrum team, it's not about your individual performance, but how well that you can bring others along with you. Anything else to add to that, Scott?
Collaboration and communication. I'm thinking about oftentimes we may have to teach the developers to talk in terms of business terms so that the product owner could understand them. I'm thinking of over time, the product owner is going to learn some, let's say, technical terms that the developer use. And how about the developers? You'll learn some terms that the product owner use. Product owner is going to be more business environment, talking about net present value or return on investment. What if your developers don't know any of these terms? I'm also making sure that the developers know these terms and can speak them and know what they are, and that when we had something like backlog refinement, product backlog refinement, then the developers are able to say, hey, look, hey, the return on investment of this feature would be XYZ. Oh, wow, how beautiful would that be? And the product owner is going to smile. Then at the same token, if the product owner is talking about a feature, they can actually call that feature by its technical term to the developers, and we're impressing each other by that communication and that collaboration. So that's something I look at and also monitor in my environment as well. Your thoughts, Adriana?
Yeah, that's great. And I think that can take us to the fourth one, which is continuous learning. And this is my personal favorite because I personally like to be around people who are constantly growing. It challenges me to grow. I think that's probably how I grew my career. It's just looking at what other people are doing and letting their success challenge me to get better and asking them questions. And I think that's really key on a Scrum team, especially you'll have people all different levels and they're trying to grow their career, and being around people that are constantly looking up the new thing as we see AI being the talk of the town. Where are you with that? And are you keeping up? And are you being able to using that to leverage your growth?
I think software development field, everybody can see that in terms of, how fast it is changing, but every field is changing. I mean, my sister is a nurse. How she nursed, let's say 2 years ago, is slightly different than how she does it today. And, a lot of industries are just changing across the board due to the technology advancements that we're making. So that means what? We have to have a growth mindset. We're looking for signs of continuous learning. Man, you can get that learning anywhere, whether you go through conferences. We have an awful lot of certifications, like still have my PMP certification. So I still have to go to some events every now and again just to recertify and get professional development credits, PDUs, professional development units. Go to conferences, go to meetup. You can get continuous learning anywhere. It could be a book, it could be a seminar, it could be a class. But just so long as you're doing something to have that continuous learning.
Yeah, I agree. Really great points there. And hopefully that all pays off toward our fifth one, which is customer satisfaction. The ultimate goal is having a happy customer or user, depending on your product, because they're the ones that we're creating this for. We don't really have a business without customers or users in some form or capacity. We need people using our product and we need people happy about our product. Anything else to add to this, Scott?
Yeah, I think I'll tell a story on this one, customer satisfaction, because I believe the worst thing that you can do to a developer, especially if you're in IT, developers create these amazing products and services and give them out to the world for people to use. And oftentimes they don't even know how their creations are being used. So I think that's the worst thing you can do to your developer. So I'm thinking about in the sprint review, here's a challenge for you, Scrum Masters. Are people who are actually using the apps, are they coming to your sprint reviews? They should, because that's where you get an awful lot of feedback. And here's my first experience with that. I was working for a grocery store chain. At this point, Amazon had bought a grocery store chain, and now Amazon is delivering groceries to people's homes. Now all the other grocery stores are trying to catch up because Amazon done changed the game. We had a website, but it wasn't an e-commerce site. What does that mean? Well, all thing you can do is go on there and look at products. You couldn't put it in a cart. You couldn't buy it. And you certainly couldn't have it delivered to your house. So we had a problem. And so we built a feature using Instacart because we didn't have time to compete with Amazon. And developers did a great job. But they didn't have that, oh, we just did something amazing. We competing now with Amazon. It wasn't like that. They didn't have that feeling when we created this thing. So I happened to be in the grocery store one day and I saw this lady. We'll say her name was Mrs. Jones. I'm paying for my groceries. Scott, you work at so-and-so grocery store company? Yeah. How you doing, Miss Jones? I love that app that y'all built. Oh, she was just telling me all kinds of things about this app. Oh, is this? I mean, she's like 60 years old, y'all. And she's using this brand new mobile app that we created so she can get her coupons because we got away from swiping a card at the cashier and we created an app. And we also included some coupons where everything is on the app now. That's what we changed. Don't use cards to swipe anymore. So I said, Mrs. Jones, would you do me a favor? So are you busy tomorrow, Miss Jones? She said, no, what you got, Scott? I'm wondering if you can come to my team sprint review tomorrow. She said, yeah, what am I going to do? I said, I just want you to tell them exactly what you told me, and I want you to give some advice in terms of how we can make it better. Okay. Now, when I got back to the office, because I was just at lunch, just grabbing some groceries, there's some lunch. So I got back to the office, I told the teams, look, we're going to have a special guest at our sprint review tomorrow. They thought I was CEO of the company, somebody like that. So they was working on their presentation, getting all, get practicing and getting ready. Oh, Scott got a special guest. It's probably going to be the CEO of the company. CEO was there, but they didn't see me talking to the CEO. This old lady came in, Miss Jones. She come to the sprint review. And that was my special guest. So when I got up there, I asked, hey, Miss Jones, hey, y'all, I told y'all I was going to have a special guest here today. Miss Jones, can you come up to the mic and give us some feedback in terms of this app that we are actually building? Mrs. Jones came up there and gave us a ton of feedback. In fact, at that sprint review, we got more new features and functionalities as a result of Mrs. Jones critiquing how she's using the thing. She's talking to the developers are talking to her. It was such a magical, legendary event. And there I'm sitting back watching this, and I'm like, wow, this is truly the worst thing that you can ever do to a developer is not show him or her their work and really get feedback from not just stakeholders from in terms of the people who we're building it for, but also the people who are actually using these products. Get them in the room as well. Vitally important. Hopefully that helps you in your career. Andriana.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I did see a article that talked about a survey of 77% of Scrum teams rarely collaborate with actual users and customers. So that's a beautiful point that you made. Hopefully that encourages people, and that will help with a lot of things: customer satisfaction, quality, motivation, morale. A lot of people, they need that connection with the end user to really start being customer obsessed. And I think that also brings us to number 6, leadership mentorship. Now, we talked about collaboration and communication, but being a successful developer doesn't really just require you to excel at your own work, but to be able to lead and help others grow. And we kind of talked a little bit about that when we talked about the 7 ways of measuring a scrum master, but that still applies with being a developer anytime that you're on any team. Helping your fellow teammate become better is really important. Like I mentioned, I don't know if I would have grown in my career without people leading and mentoring me throughout, and everybody needs that in their company. Do you have anything else to add to that, Scott?
Yeah, I will add one more little story in regards of leadership and mentorship. Remember, Scrum Masters, we are servant leaders. And the definition of servant leader, the operational definition I'm going on is that people will grow as a result of us. One of the worst things I can't stand at sprint review, you only have one person talking about everybody on the team's work. And typically that's the lead QA person, that's the lead developer talking about everybody's work. How about we get everybody involved in talking about their work? I use the retrospective to help team members to work on their presentation skills. Here's what I do. Typically, this is the first week of me on the job. I see that, and it's retrospective. I'm going to turn it into a mini Toastmaster. Hey, look, hey, Andriana, if you had got a chance to talk about your contribution in terms of building this product, what would you have said? Because here's what I found out when I do that. Your best presenter is not the one presenting. Your best presenter is probably that quiet person wishing they could talk about their own contribution to their product, but they're not. But when they get up there and start speaking about their product the first time you ever see it, it will shock you because you didn't know they had that in them. But then it becomes normal. So when I think about that point, leadership and mentorship, that's kind of a visual. Hopefully that helps you kind of see that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I think that points us to the last one, which is adaptability. You just told a story about how resilient and adaptable someone is in a totally different position. So we were able to see something brand new out of them. And I think this is a great final one because we're also in that season where we're talking about AI and different things like that, where there is a lot of change, and people that can adapt quickly are going to continue to thrive in the marketplace in a variety of ways. Do you have anything else to add to this one? All right. So we talked about quality of work, efficiency and productivity, collaboration and communication, continuous learning, customer satisfaction, leadership and mentorship, and adaptability. And the most important thing we want you to take away from this is not to like judge people, but really to help them improve and support their career growth. So if you are a developer, hopefully you're looking around and thinking, oh, here are some of the gaps that I have, and here's how I can get better and improve my skills. If you're a scrum master or product owner, here's some gaps that I see, and start thinking of some ways that you can support the team in growing in these areas where you think you may have some gaps in. You can check out some other videos that we have, 7 ways to measure the success of a scrum master, 7 ways to measure the success of a product owner. And as always, if you made it to the end of this video, then you have an attention span greater than a goldfish. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Be legendary.